Dear colleagues, good morning from everyone. We see that there are still attendees joining us, so we kept some minutes to come in, but of course we welcome more participants. So my name is Nikos Liolios, and it's with great pleasure that I welcome you to this spring seminar of the Erasmus Goes Digital series, which is hosted by the EWP Plus Consortium, the consortium that is responsible from now on for the technical maintenance and improvements of the European Student Card Initiative building blocks under, of course, the supervision of the European Commission. So in today's webinar, we are going to give you some insights into the workings that are in the pipeline and the improvements that are going to be implemented in the weeks and months to come. So my dear colleagues from GÉANT, from the European University Foundation and from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki are going to showcase these improvements and they're going to present you what is going to be available to all of you in the coming period. So with no further ado, I welcome you all and I give the floor to Joao Bacelar, Executive Director of the European University Foundation, who is going to introduce us to the Erasmus Without Paper Plus Consortium and its governance. So, Joao, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nikos, and good morning to all the colleagues joining us. Quite a few. Always a pleasure seeing you, and thanks for having me. Now, I'd like to go straight to the elephant in the room, which is that this transition of Erasmus into a native digital process has been challenging and oftentimes frustrating for too many of us. And that's something that obviously has been closely monitored, and it's part of the reason why Erasmus Without Papers, which is a project that ended already in 2019, is being brought back. I think we can say that we have unfinished business, and today we wanted to share with you about the work that is underway to try to address these issues and essentially fix things. Now, we've started work on this new incarnation of EWP in January, and this is a bird's eye view of what you're going to hear in this webinar. As you will know, there is another webinar in the afternoon for a different group of users. So I will start with what is specific to the morning session, which has to do with the Erasmus dashboard. And the good news is that actually for the first time ever, there's now a small team of colleagues that are dedicated to making improvements to stabilize the system and to make sure that the large number of users that depend on it have a reliable service. Today, we'll meet some of the team members that are involved in this effort. You'll get a sneak peek into their work. And while you might notice some improvements already in the weeks ahead, it's also important that you know and understand that the focus here is on some in-depth adjustments that are a bit overdue. And so more than quick fixes, you should expect for having bigger news and results towards the end of 2022. And obviously that's something that we will keep informed and continue communicating about. Communication is another area that we think that can use a bit of a boost, a bit of an improvement. In 2021, last year, by we, I mean all the colleagues that have been involved in these initiatives that underpin this transition, we shared on average one conference or tutorial per month, and this has garnered more than 40,000 views. But we are well aware that some colleagues feel that more information is needed, better information sometimes as well, and we think we can do better. So today's webinar is the first of a series of events that will span both online events and targeted trainings that will extend throughout 2022. Now, many of you are actually joining us through a new YouTube channel, which is specifically dedicated to the European Student Card Initiative, which is to say that colleagues that couldn't join us today, understandably, they can always come back and see what they've missed, if you will, if what we've discussed. So I'm not really a YouTuber myself. I'm not going to do the click and subscribe thing, but do stay tuned because we hope to keep you abreast of all the critical developments. And talking of critical, this is not a word puzzle, but there's one thing that we are celebrating modestly, but celebrating nonetheless today, which is the launch of a new service desk, a new help desk. This was critical. This was something that we know many of you missed in terms of having more support. This is going to be one of the topics in our agenda for today, and some colleagues will tackle. And I myself will have both the pleasure and the responsibility of telling you a little bit about another area that we're looking to improve, which was the governance of the project. I understand this might be the least exciting part on the face of it, but it's really important so that we can stay true to the notion of something that is done by universities, for universities, obviously with the support of many entities, public, private, the Commission, first and foremost. So it's really important that if we are to really succeed in this transition, that international officers, national agencies, other vital stakeholders will be deeply involved. And because the topic is today's topic that I will try to shine a light on, allow me to share my screen with you. So governance, let's get, I wouldn't call it the boring stuff. It's really very exciting, but let's get then a quick overview on the work on this front. Now, if we look to the past, recent past, more far away past, projects like EWP, My Academic Idea, and others that you might or might not have heard about, these were, as the name suggests, projects, and they had the limitations that are inherent to projects. So they had a structure and a decision-making process, which ultimately was centered on the project steering committee. Although we went above and beyond to consult extensively with IROs, with national agencies, commercial providers, and oftentimes critical decisions would be taken together or in articulation with the GÉANT to the best of our ability. I think that we've explored the limits of what we could do in this setting. This is a new setting that EWP Plus is being operationalized. And I think this is one of the areas where we can go much, much further. So what we're looking to make sure that happens for the next 4 years is that we're going to leapfrog over different governance models and try to dive straight in what we call the multi-stakeholder approach, which is about strengthening ownership, transparency, and above all, to make sure that the work is aligned with the needs of the community and of the end users. It's a continuation in some sense of work that has been done before, but it sets the bar rather more high, and I'll try to explain how exactly. In practice, this process has been driven by a couple of critical communities. In one end, international officers, which I suspect will be most of you in the audience today. And you've been the eyes and the ears, and you need to be front and center of this process. It goes without saying. It needs to work for you. And as I've said in the beginning, we understand we're not there yet. And this is a problem. Problems need to be solved. There is also, of course, a technical community, and they are key enablers. And so making sure that this community works together, which might not always be easy. This community includes, for example, companies that are natural competitors to one another. But I think we have a good track record that we can build on. We have good practices, and it's very important that they also guide us about the implementation of EWP. And then we have as well digital officers, which are probably our strongest allies on the ground, because they have this incredible superpower of making sure that the information that I was talking about earlier reaches every ECHE holder. And in addition to that, they do many other things. This would be a presentation in and out of themselves. But basically, the importance of the stakeholders is such that we have to nurture, we have to work closely with, and we have to leverage on them. And so part of the work that is being done in terms of the governance is to define as clearly as possible, and I just realized a typo slipped in, I apologize for that. What are the roles of this groups, of these communities, how they complement each other, and how the responsibilities are defined. We would call this feedback mining, but the word doesn't exist. but those of you that are familiar, and most of you will, with the concept of data mining, you will understand what we're trying to achieve. So it's a much more constant work than what was possible in the past. Seeing each other, exchanging information, identifying problems, assessing whether solutions are working. In practice, what this means is that these communities that I talk about, and I'm going to keep using this word very deliberately, they are expected to become the center of gravity of decision. The decision cannot happen too far away from where the people that have the best information happens. But in addition to working in parallel and intensively, we will also have to work in concert. So one other thing that is being looked into and operationalized is how those different communities or some of their representatives can come together and to make sure that no vital stakeholders are left out of it, be it student organizations, being the digitization experts at European University Alliances, and eventually others that need to contribute, that we need to work with to deliver what the idea of EWP was all about. Now, there are some aspects that are still being worked on, and so this is a tentative slide to be transparent about the kind of discussions that we're having. One of the things that we're looking into is how can we involve more international relations officers? How can we tap into the expertise of more colleagues, which is not easy because there are many holders, as you know, there are many IROs, literally thousands. And so we're trying to find solutions to enable a greater participation from this critical group into these processes. I think an announcement will come a little bit later because, as I've said, it's work in progress. Another thing that is being considered that the colleagues from the European Commission are helping us understand the added value of, the merit, the priority of, is whether, for example, we can also leverage on university networks and associations. Some of you will know that I work at European University Foundation, so we do have some experience of passing on information to a large number of users. And in the past, we've used these networks to come together and to ensure that with, in a relatively efficient way, hundreds, if not thousands of institutions could have another channel to ensure redundancy. And it's a two-way street. You send information, you get feedback. And this is something that might feature in future plans to be confirmed. Now, what is also new in these discussions, and I know I'm stretching your patience a little bit and there are more exciting topics on the agenda, so I'll start wrapping up. What is also new in these discussions is that if we can have a clear division of roles and responsibilities, obviously this needs to be well supported in terms of processes. For example, questions of technical specifications. I think there is a consensus emerging, and there's a meeting actually underway as we speak about the need to have a clear voting procedure so that there's a threshold and make sure that there is a critical mass of colleagues that are on board, essentially to avoid that down the street there are questions about the legitimacy or not of certain design decisions. And more important than that, because this is a relatively trivial matter, it's understanding how really important decisions, what is the process whereby the different communities give their assent, give their feedback. So, for example, if we were thinking about hypothetically defining new strategic priorities, we might want to have kind of a zigzag, a pathway to make sure that we've talked with everyone that has a vital stake on the matter, not taking 2 years. Obviously, this needs to happen in a relatively efficient fashion. And so these are the kind of complexities and challenges, and I think very positive challenges that we'll be grappling with. There's also going to be an advisory board working with EWP, composed mostly, we assume at this point, from partners from the private sector, because we stand to learn from each other. EWP was always about bringing everyone around the table, everyone that can contribute, that has expertise. And sometimes it's actually very inspiring to see what colleagues from other fields of digitization are doing and learn from one another. So it's not perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle, but it's nonetheless a very significant added value that we can generate. And this is roughly where we are today. So some of these governance bodies are already active. There is an infrastructure forum, which is in more simple terms, our IT forum, already underway today, and there have been already a few meetings. This is a body where all the third-party providers and also all the universities that have their own in-house systems will be invited to participate, because it is a technical community. The same thing is true of digital officers, and this will intensify as we move forward. The expectation is that the totality of the governance bodies can come into being, can be operationalized until the end of April. So I'm giving a snapshot of where we are today, and I'm rather optimistic that we will have a smooth way forward to have a more open and essentially a more powerful way to steer EWP forward. That's about it from my side. Thank you very much for having me yet again, and I'd give the floor back to our chair.
Thank you very much, Joao. I think that this was a very good introduction to what's coming next, and it's a solid basis. The rules of the game, it's very important to know how we are going to proceed in terms of the European Student Card Initiative. So thank you very much for this. Just to mention, because there are some questions about the presentations of the current webinar, so please note that except from the recorded webinar that will be available in the YouTube channel, you will be also able to get all presentations through the Erasmus Without Paper Cockpit and Sender, where they are going to be uploaded. So it's the same place where you get the registration link, and so you can find it very easily, I suppose. So this is for those asking. And probably, I don't know, Joao, because there's also a question that we could very swiftly reply about how consortia in Key Action 103 will be able to use the dashboard. So any insights on this, I believe that will be useful for our attendees.
Thank you, Nikos, and thank you to the colleague that asked the question. Well, I have to plug in this with what I was presenting. I'll try to answer the question by explaining how the governance structure allows us to answer the question. It's a bit meta, but I think it's also a nice segue to the next speaker that might be in position to be more concrete about it. So the question of consortia is indeed very important, and it was recently discussed, well, it has been discussed on multiple occasions, obviously, but in the context of the work that we are presenting today, it was recently brought up by digital officers. And my understanding, and I really stand to be corrected by the next speaker, my understanding is that we will be working together with the national agencies to map what the needs and the processes inherent to this consortium are, so that eventually we can provide a sound answer to how they can use not just the dashboard, but EWP in general. This is something that is currently out of scope of the implementation, but we take very good notice of the interest, of the excitement of the colleagues that work in consortia to be a part of this digitization efforts. And so we are already, in fact, looking to take steps to guide us in that direction.
Thank you very much, Joao. Indeed. So this is very good a bridge for the next presentation, and from our colleague from the European Commission, Alexandra Licht, who is a policy officer in Unit B1 of the Directorate General of Education and Culture. So Alexandra will talk about the digitalization roadmap, and the floor is yours, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. Just let me for a second share my screen. Just a moment. So first of all, thank you all for joining. I see we have very high numbers, over 800 participants, which is excellent. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you also for the colleagues from EWP Plus Consortium that have organized this meeting. I think it's excellent to have everyone on board. Now, I'll provide some policy overview on context and timeline, and then maybe if we have time, we'll touch upon the app as well, just one or two slides about the app. Now, as you might know, we shared in middle of January the European Strategy for Universities, which is a very important publication as it brings together a shared vision to support all types of higher education institutions and to adapt to changing conditions across all their missions. And why is it an important document? Because it sets the priority areas for transformation with clear objectives. It has concrete actions at the EU level to support the sector, and as well synergies and actions and national reforms. So we were very happy that we can share with you. In case you have not seen or read about the strategy, it is available in the European Commission website. Now, within this strategy, we have 4 flagship initiatives. So you can see that we have the European universities, so alliances. We have legal status for alliances, expand to 60 universities with more than 500 universities by mid-2024. Joint European degrees further explored and further developed. And of course, the reason why we're here, the European Student Card Initiative, to be scaled up. And the idea is that the European Student Card Initiative will start massively deploying a unique European student identifier that will be available for all mobile students in 22 and to all students across all universities by mid-24. So these are very encouraging news, because it means that the European Student Card Initiative, which EWP is a part of, have very high importance and receive also the political support which is needed in order to move forwards with this initiative. Now, how do we get there? As we see, that's indeed quite ambitious as well. So there are several work streams under the European Student Card Initiative. So first, to connect all universities in Erasmus Plus country via a digital network. So this is the Erasmus Without Paper network. To offer software for institutions without student information system, the dashboard, EWP dashboard. So you guys here. And to offer a student-facing interface, the Erasmus Plus app. And of course, we have also the identifier element. So to issue an identifier to students to be able to identify them across IT systems, the European Student Card Identifier, and to ensure that students can confirm the status abroad and enjoy various possibilities on and off campus with the European Student Card. So all these elements are together combined, make the European Student Card Initiative. So in order to be able to run the initiative, in order to be able to support you, the Commission has, we provide support and we provide financement. So in January 22 to December 24, there are tenders put in place for implementing digitalization of Erasmus+. So we have 2 parts of the tender. Part 1 is Erasmus Without Paper and Erasmus Plus app. So the goal is improving and maintaining infrastructure in and around EWP. And the second part will focus on the European Student Card. So as you can see, and the slides will be made available to you, the various elements, especially focusing on interoperability, dashboard improvement, further digitalization, as we want to go also beyond the IAs and LAs, incorporating the app as well, and improve support services, which, as you just learned, the help desk is functioning and available. And this is a huge need and relief. Now, as for the part 2, we're talking here about incorporating digital identity into existing cards, so a hologram and a QR code, enable e-card interoperability, the virtual card, with the Erasmus Plus app, which of course will allow on and off campus services. And of course, this will all be accompanied by communication towards students and a lot of activities around that. Now, I think this is what you have been waiting for after we had a brief policy overview, the mobility roadmap. So this is a tentative roadmap. We have the Erasmus Plus digital timeline, and this is also the timeline you can find in the European Commission website. The idea is that interinstitutional agreements to be digitalized within 2022, learning agreements also 22, transcript of records in 23, application and nomination in 23, and of course further timeline to be defined together with the governance board, together with our colleagues in EWP+. So of course, I mentioned here that under the condition that the systems are fit for purpose. And what does it mean? This timeline is a tentative timeline, and we send a very clear message that the train of digitalization is moving on, and we want everyone to be on board. But of course, we understand that various institutions have various timing and various abilities to connect. And this is why the roadmap is valid as long as the systems are fit for purpose. Now, what does it mean in practice? That academic year 21-22 has been considered as a transitional year, and I'm sure that you're all very well aware of. This transitional year is extended until the end of the calendar year 22. Why? Because we understand that we have various players on board. We have dashboard, we have in-house systems, we have software providers. So in order to fully exchange data and being able to communicate, to transfer data, to communicate data, we need to have interoperability, and this takes time. And this is why the transitional year is extended. Now, calendar year 23, the idea is to have digital readiness by the calendar year 23. And there we will have, it will become the digital readiness part of the ECHA commitment. And it will be, of course, a subject to a monitoring process by the national agencies. The ECHA monitoring guidelines will be published by June 22. So you will find all the relevant information there. And of course, the idea is not to have a black and white is an institution fulfilling that commitment on digitalization? Yes and no. So it's not a black and white process. The idea, in which you will see it in June, is that ECHA monitoring will reflect the efforts. What does it mean? Is an institution making efforts in order to connect? Does it show that it's making all the possible steps in order to become part of EWP, in order to enable certain functionalities? So really look at the efforts and the willingness of the institutions to take steps, substantial steps, in order to digitalize. Now, so what in what regards to the IAAs, and many of you, I assume, have this question. So as we have been published, we have communicated a note to the NA directors, to national agency directors, and maybe some of you also have heard about it. Mobility flows in academic year 22-23 will need to be captured either by paper agreements or by old IAA versions from the previous program, accompanied by email exchange. Okay, so which means, as the current academic year is a transitional year, we understand that maybe not everyone will be ready by academic year 22-23. Now, HEIs are strongly encouraged to exchange digital IAAs as soon as possible. So already for mobility starting in fall 22, and not wait for the deadline of the calendar year. So the idea, of course, we allow flexibility, we allow your teams to be ready, but we urge you already to start exchanging now and do everything is possible to exchange digital IAAs already tomorrow or already in fall 22, and not to wait till the deadline, till the end of the year. Now, in relationship to the learning agreements, so consider the year 22 as a moment to switch to digital. So the same message as with the IAAs, take this year as a year that you need to make the change, you need to connect, you need to do all the efforts, also in terms of learning agreements. So efforts to be put in place to advance digitalization process of learning agreements as well. And we would also like to emphasize that the digitalization of learning agreements advised already in fall 22. So why? So you will allow the students that will go in mobility in fall 22 to benefit from the Erasmus Plus app features, which I will touch upon in a second. Now, when we talk about interoperability of EWP, and as our colleagues mentioned, and they will continue to elaborate, the EWP Plus Consortium is setting up a centralized help desk to support you. So of course, you might say, well, the expectations are high. Yes, the expectations are high, but also there is a lot of work being done by the consortium and also by our team in order to support you the best possible way. So there is also a governance structure as explained. And also there is a very strong focus. A focus is being put on improving the interoperability between all systems. So you would be able to exchange IAs also with third-party providers and in-house systems. Now, Let's look at the next topic. So the Erasmus Plus app, I just bring it in with 2 slides. Is how can we talk about ESCI without also mentioning the app? And I'm sure that some of you have followed the events we had in Budapest last week. So there are very exciting available features on the Erasmus Plus app. For example, the ability to manage administrative procedures for dashboard users, the ESCI-based European student card, the multilingual information, tips, deals, events, and so on and so on. Now, as I mentioned, the part of the ESCI tender, there will be more features that will be developed within the app. For example, a digital European student card, more administrative processes, integration of OLS, review, and so on and so on. So there is a lot of interesting and beneficial things for your students and you, which will be upcoming from 2023. Now, what is your role with the app? And what I would like to use the opportunity that we are all here together online. So we urge you to populate the app with information relevant to your institution and to urge students to use the app and complete the application and nomination process, and also to sign the learning agreements through the app. And also, which is very important and our colleagues will touch upon later, is to issue ESCI to your students. So why? So this way they will be able to access the digital card on the app. So this is our overview, and I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for providing all this feedback on what's the policy context and what is expected from higher education institutions to do, and so they can plan ahead. I'm not sure if we have some questions that probably we can answer, just 1 or 2 of them. So let me check. So a first question that comes from our attendees is whether the extension will also apply to this extension you mentioned, also applies to the learning agreements and not only to the interinstitutional agreements. So if you can answer to that, and there's a second one I can
sure.
put forward.
So
yeah.
as mentioned, if the system, of course, as mentioned, if the system, let me start like this. If the system is fit for purpose, you need to exchange, and that needs to happen already as soon as possible. Now, of course, we understand that there are processes and steps to be taken in order to also sign learning agreements digitally. And this is why this academic year is a transitional year. However, from next calendar year, we expect and we advise everyone already to be fully digitally ready. So to be able to exchange learning agreements, to exchange IAs digitally. However, again, we understand this is a process which is not, it doesn't happen over a day. This is why there is a help desk, and this is why also there will be even more support and more guidelines available for you. So we do not put a very strong deadline, because if the systems are not ready, then we can put a deadline also tomorrow. It would not serve anyone. But we encouraged you already to take the steps to exchange as soon as possible, because if we push, imagine if we push too much the deadline also for the learning agreements, then it's a pity, as students will not be able to enjoy features available from the app and be able to submit their all online and so on and so on. So the idea is, whenever you're ready, do all the efforts to connect to the network, do all the efforts to exchange as soon as possible.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I think that this is the case, that we should not wait for tools, that we need to look at the tools that we have and we are presenting now, and go internally and check how we can incorporate these tools in our processes, so we can start planning ahead. And of course, I see that the Commission is flexible once we start this internal procedure about when we are going to actually implement this, but we need to start now. I think this is the point.
We cannot wait till everyone is ready. If we just wait till everyone is ready, we're just sitting and waiting. Right. So the idea is that we need to take ownership and responsibility, each institution, and do our best.
Thank you. And so the second question is a little bit about the cards part that you mentioned before, although it's not part of this webinar. However, you mentioned it, so perhaps we should also pose this question. The question is whether there is a guide how to implement the European student card to physical cards, or how can higher education institutions generate the holograms that are required or the QR codes that should be added on the cards. So I don't know if there's another webinar that will be presenting more detail. Yeah. So
yes. So as this is the whole topic of the European student card is dealt with by other colleagues, entity data, and they will put in place webinars, guiding materials, and so on. And so this information will come. There is also a help desk existing related only to the European student card, which I will post on the chat in a couple of minutes. So where you can, if you have questions, you can already write to that help desk, but definitely materials and guidelines will be available.
thank you very much, Alexandra, for all the answers to the questions. And I think that also your presentation introduced a very interesting topic about identification and authentication of students that should have access to all this infrastructure. So I think it's the better to proceed with the next presentation. And so I ask our colleague Licia Florio from GÉANT. She is a senior trust and identity manager to enlighten us a little bit more on the European student identifier in the mobility journey, let's say. So Licia, if you are ready, you can share
yes,
your
I'm
screen.
ready. Yes,
Yeah.
I will share my screen.
Okay.
So, share screen. Yes. Okay, good morning.
We can see you also.
Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Nikos, for the introduction. I will be talking a little bit, very briefly, about the European Student Identifier. There were some questions already, which I think we have addressed, but if there are more questions, happy to discuss them. So you have heard a lot about European Student Identifier, the ESI. What's this and why are we talking about this a lot lately? So we are witnessing basically really a transformation of the Erasmus Plus program, which started already a way back, obviously, but now things are really happening fast. And the whole purpose, the end goal is to ensure that the whole process will happen online, including starting from the student and then also allowing institutions to transfer data and records about the students. However, when we look at this process online, the exchange of student records and the authentication of students happen all at separate moments. So there is the moment in which as a student you apply, then the application is processed, the application is approved, the student goes on mobility, the student is done and the records are transferred. And all these do not require the students to be involved in the process. So there is also this aspect to take into account. Therefore, we need an identifier to be sure that the records are really linked to the right student and that the institution can transfer this information whenever the time is mature for that. The European Student Identifier, the name was already introduced by the student card project. So we have worked together with those people involved in those initial specifications to review the specification and to make them fit to what we needed. This ESI is a protocol neutral identifier. What does it mean, protocol neutral? It means that it's not linked to a specific system, but it can be used by multiple systems, whatever the technology they use. The specification have been developed over the time. It's been, I believe, more than 1 year, 1.5 years since we agreed on the specification. And we worked, this was really a collaborative effort that involved the Erasmus Plus team, the student card, European student card team, and the GÉANT team, which is the infrastructure that connects the European federations, the higher education federations worldwide. The process has put also, we have defined a place to make the release of such an identifier more scalable. There is a process via which we can determine which services are qualified to get such an identifier. I put here the link, so if you are curious to see how the identifier looks like, you can go there and you can have a look. And we have defined basically a governance for this identifier, as we know things will evolve over time, so we need to have a place to make sure that these changes can be accommodated. So how does the ESI look like? This is a bit technical, but it's good for people to get a sense of this meta concept. So the European Student Identifier, in most of the cases, is generated by the higher education institution. There are two aspects that have to be put together. If you think you are baking a cake, you need to have the key ingredients to do this cake, and they are something that enables to identify the university. And for this, we use the SHA-COM organization value. And the reason for this is that most of the Erasmus Plus community was already using such an identifier, so this comes handy. And the other part is we need to identify the student. And for this, with the aim to reuse what was already in place, we decided to go for the student number, the code. And that's because this is used pretty much everywhere in all universities. So you see here in this box how the ESI is encoded technically. Is URN, is a bit technical, but you can see how it looks like. So if we assume that we are talking about a university that is called HEI, very creatively, the ESI would look like this information that you see in the box below, where this number 2349 whatever is a fantasy student number that we came up with for the example. We are also, there is also another situation. We know that some countries, for instance, Croatia is a good example, has a centralized system to issue the student number. So this means that the student number by definition is unique because it's centrally managed for the whole population. In this case, then we do not need the SHA-COM organization anymore because the numbers are by definition unique. We do need the country code, and in this case, HR, because it's Croatia. But again, those are just examples. You will have to see how this is organized nationally or in your university. So how does the process look like? Well, the first thing that I would like to stress is that the students do not need to know the student number, the student identifier. The student should not be asked even, do you have any SI? This is completely transparent to the student. And for simplicity, you should imagine the same happens when you try to authenticate at Google or at your university or elsewhere. You just type in information, and what is transported to the service is not so relevant for you as a user. And this is a bit similar in a way. So what's the process? The ESI is released at the moment the student authenticates. We are relying a lot on single sign-on, and this is because these mechanisms are already in place at many universities. So when the student authenticates, after putting in their credential, a number of information is transferred by the university to the student system platform, for instance, the dashboard in this case. And then this information is sent to the receiving institution, which could use the dashboard or, I don't know, another system. And DSI is transported via using the EWP APIs. Now, it's not so relevant what APIs are used, but you see that there is basically an exchange of information between different systems. let's look a little bit about the stats. We started, we keep track about the institutions that are releasing DSI. And what is important to note is that there is a steady growth among the number of institutions that are releasing DSI. What we would like to see, obviously, is the orange bar to be as high as the blue bar, which means that we get to a situation where all institutions are releasing DSI. And I would like here to piggyback on what Alexandra was mentioning. Yes, we have not set a day to make this mandatory because we do not believe that we should use brute force, but we do believe that all of us are part of this process and all of us have a responsibility to make things happen. So there is no point in waiting for a deadline. There is information there, there is support, so please work with your own institution to make sure that DSI is released, because this will eventually happen at some point, and it's good to be ready, basically, when this will be required. And this is all I wanted to say about the DSI. There will be another presentation in the afternoon by my colleague Christos Kanellopoulos, which will provide similar information, but more tailored for the other audience. And this is all, Nikos, so back to you.
Thank you very much, Licia, for this very informative presentation about the ESI. And, you know, there are many questions in the QA part, and we have picked one that relates to this. So there's a question about where should higher education institutions release ESI?
So this is part of the...
So when we're talking about releasing where? This is, yeah. And the second that goes along with it is where should they encode it? So I just quote the question from the from the colleagues.
Yes, thanks for this. So where should they release this? So they will, so first of all, this is the IT department. In the moment in which, so this is the place where the user accounts and user authentication happens. So there is always a team within universities that manage the login for the student. So basically that team, together with the information about the student, is Licia Florio, works for the University of Thessaloniki, actually studies at the University of Thessaloniki. Together with this information, they will also provide the DSI. To which services will this be released at the moment? Well, we are working with the online, the OLA, basically, the app, but we are starting by releasing this to all services that are now in place to make the Erasmus Plus process. How will this be encoded? I've shown in the previous slides the specification. It should be encoded like a URL with the SHACOM organization, if assuming that there is no centralized way to manage the student numbers plus the student number.
Yeah, thank you, Licia. My comment would be probably the colleague that posed this question was an IRO colleague, and they should definitely get in touch with their IT department that is responsible for all of these technicalities, let's say, about how encoding, where to release. Probably they already know that there is a certain place that they can make it available and release the ESI to be ready when it should be used and consumed. Let's use a technical term, consumed by all these tools and applications. Thank you very much, Licia. Because we are a little bit not so good on time, probably, but I could...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Licia. I would probably go to the next presentation. In the meantime, because there are many questions from you, dear colleagues and attendees, about different parts of the tools, and that probably some challenges that we face. I would like to say that I would like to ask you to be a little more patient, because in the coming and the next presentations, these challenges will be addressed, and you will be informed about the developments that they are already in the pipeline. So you will get a very good insight about all these problems and challenges that you already and we already face. So just asking for your patience before we go with the questions. So the next colleague that is going to present, and you're going to give you exactly some feedback on your experience on the dashboard and also the improvements, is Nikos Saoulidis, a user interface, user experience designer from the development team of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. So, Nikos, you have a hot topic. The floor is yours to present all these very interesting findings and also share the improvements. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Nikos. You can see my screen, right? Okay. So, hi, everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is Nikos Saoulidis, and in collaboration with Ioannis Zachros, we've been trying to prepare the mockups that will improve the dashboard user experience in the future. So in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll see how we gathered users' feedback on the current dashboard app and combined it with user interface design principles to create the mockups for a more user-friendly interface. Due to the limited time of the presentation, we will focus on the mockups and the feedback for the interinstitutional agreement management. In a TED Talk about feedback on education and teachers, Bill Gates said, "We all need people who will give us feedback, and that's how we improve." This statement, of course, applies to every aspect of our lives, and it could apply to the dashboard application as well. So we created a survey. It consisted of 17 questions, and users were asked to evaluate the core functionalities of the dashboard, rate their experiences with the app, and make suggestions for improvement. The survey had almost 1,000 participants. So let's take a look at 3 of these questions. At the moment, dashboard isn't very easy to operate from small screens and is impossible to use it from a smartphone. So we asked users if they would use the dashboard from their mobile device, if possible. It makes sense that the majority of the users would stick to the desktop version of the app, even if a mobile version was available. However, a significant portion of the users, about 35%, said that they would use the dashboard from their phone, either to review some information or to perform all available actions and flows. Let's look at this statement. I find it easy to create a new interinstitutional agreement for my institution. More than half of dashboard users don't really agree with this statement, as they find it difficult or very difficult to create a new interinstitutional agreement. And it's not their fault. In fact, I think that I would be one of them. There's much room for improvement in the form as it is now. There is a ton of information shown at once, unclear number of steps, etc. User frustration is natural. Then we asked users to rate their experiences with the listing of the interinstitutional agreements and the use of available filtering options. Almost the same user dissatisfaction is shown in the review part of the IAAs. Again, more than half of the users are not happy with the current implementation, while less than a quarter of them finds it easy to review the IAAs of their university using the available filter options. And I wouldn't blame them either. This is the IAA list screen as it is now. There are 3 rows of information for each IAA and no columns. Filtering and sorting is a little confusing, and the navigation in the module is difficult with all these scroll bars. I would really like to thank all the users who completed the survey, and especially those who took the time to express their complaints and suggestions in the 2 open text fields we provided. I've gathered some of the most dominant ones related to the IAA listing. As we saw before, the listing is confusing due to the presence of unnecessary information, and there's no download as PDF feature, which is very useful and much requested. Some of the proposed solutions to these problems are to list the IAAs in a more clever and minimalistic way, showing the most important information for the reviewer, and of course provide the download as PDF feature. So the improved listing screen of the IAAs will look something like this. Okay, let's take a closer look. At the left, you can see the updated navigation menu. The module we are in, the IAAs for example, is highlighted and expanded, showing all the relative features. Every IAA is now a row, columns are shown at the top, and the user is able to sort the IAAs by each column. Actions are clear for every agreement: edit, download as PDF, or delete, and the filters button, which is something we will revisit later. Now we can see a single agreement, and at the top of the screen, there's an overview of the current IAA, which is always visible. Information is organized in tabs for easier navigation, and there are accordions for each section, which expand upon clicking on them to end all this endless scrolling. Now for our smartphone friends, let's see a mobile transformation of the previous screen. The columns are now transformed into boxes, each one of them corresponding to an IAA. The navigation sidebar appears by clicking on the menu button at the top left of the screen. Now, I want you to meet Jacob Nielsen, a Danish human-computer interaction researcher who was named the guru of web page usability by the New York Times. In 1994, he developed the so-called 10 usability heuristics for user interface design. And I've chosen some of these to serve as guidelines for the UX improvements that will be implemented for the dashboard. Interfaces should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. This reminds me of one of the feedback responses, which stated that the listing of IAAs was loaded with unnecessary information. The aesthetic and minimalist design also means that we should prioritize the content and features to support primary goals. Of course, all these changes come with the need of a new visual identity. The main ingredients for the new visual identity are the type, which should be readable and give emphasis where needed, a new color palette, which is aesthetic, easy on the eye, and used to signify different actions, and of course, a new logo and icons. Users should not have to wonder whether different words, situations, or actions mean the same thing. In the current dashboard application, that is not the case. For example, the listing and filtering options are not very consistent in the different modules of the application. But it's not going to be the case in the enhanced dashboard user interface. All filtering options will look the same way. That means that they will work the same way too. This is true not only for the filtering of the institutional agreements, but also for the filtering of the learning agreements and the applications. By pressing the filters button at the top right of the screen, a sidebar appears from the left. The user is able to complete the filters they wish and then click on the Apply Filters button. The active filters appear at the top of the listing as blue bubbles, and they are visible at any time. The user is also able to click on the X button for every bubble to deactivate the filter, or to deactivate all the filters by clicking on the Clear All button. The design should always keep users informed about what's going on. Let's return at the IAA's listing screen once more. You can notice the different colors at the left of each row. It's an indicator of the current status of the agreement. The green color suggests that the agreement is approved by both parties, while this pinkish color suggests that an action must be taken by the user. For example, this agreement was submitted by another university, and the user must review and edit or approve it. As we saw before, at the right of each row, there are buttons with the available options. The blue color of the button signifies actions that the user is able to commit to, such as download the agreement, while the gray colored button suggests that these actions can be taken by the user at the moment. Finally, as we saw before, the blue bubbles at the top of the listing inform the users about the filters applied at the moment. One last principle. The best designs carefully prevent problems from occurring in the first place. One of the best ways to do that is to present users with a confirmation message before they commit to an action. And that should happen for every non-reversible action. For example, every time the user decides to decline a learning agreement, the following message will show up. The purpose of this message is dual. it prevents users from committing to an action by mistake, and it informs them about the consequences of this action. The user can now decide if they really want to commit to their action or cancel it. Of course, another message informing about the success of the action or its failure is necessary. One last thing, I would like to revisit and actually modify the diagram I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. Of course, the mockups, like the ones I showed you, are the product of the UX design process. And there's much work to be done in 2022 by the Aristotle development team that will actually implement those mockups, trying to make the dashboard more user-friendly and functional. But where's the user feedback part in all of this? Actually, feedback is not something that is added once in the equation and then we forget about it forever. Evaluation of the results is constant. It's an essential part of the design process. It's more like a loop with a goal to make the EWP dashboard better and better. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nikos, for the presentation. I think that you have given a very good insight into the dashboard, and I also think that I should comment probably that all these new functionalities, new user experience interface, it's also with essence. So it's not just a very good lookings, but it's also about the actual background of the app. Of the dashboard of the tool. So there are many improvements there as well. So I could probably give the floor if there are any questions, because I see there are many questions about the dashboard in the QA. The first question is, I don't know if Nikos or probably even Joao can probably answer to this, because it's a question of when all these new things will be available to our colleagues. So I don't know if Nikos, you or also probably Joao can take up this question. Nikos, do you have an answer? I suppose you have, right?
We don't have an exact date. We promise to do much work in this year. There's so much to be done. And you will hear from us pretty soon after that, I suppose.
Yes, I see that there is quite a disappointment from the colleagues about the current probably use of the tool. However, I can also say that there is much resources, many more resources now that can improve the tool, the dashboard, and I'm confident that in the weeks and months ahead that will be the case. So thank you very much, Nikos, once more, and let us proceed to the next presentation, which is also a very hot topic for all colleagues, and it's about the support. So how the dashboard users will be better supported in the future. And for this presentation, I will give the floor to Michalis Zannetos, from the IT Center of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, who will be, and he is a service desk agent from the service desk team. So he is the right person for this presentation. Michalis, the floor is yours. We are all ears.
Thank you, Nikos, for the introduction. Let me... One moment, please. Okay. So... Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
I hope.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So my name is Michalis Zannetos, and I'm a member of the newly established Erasmus Student Car Initiative Service Desk. From now on, we will refer to it by its initials, namely ESCI Service Desk. Today, we will discuss how my colleagues and I will be providing support to all the EWP users from now onwards. So we provide a single point of contact for all our services, whether users face problem in the Erasmus dashboard, like typical problems the international relations offices face are creating new accounts, changing an account holder, password resetting, etc. The online learning agreements, all sorts of problems as students face. The Erasmus Plus app, and the Erasmus without paper network, like problems with the IIAs. In the future, the list of our supported services will be expanded. So whatever the problem is, they can simply reach out to us at the Erasmus Student Card Initiative Service Help Desk. We should note that we keep the same visual identity for our service desk everywhere, making it simpler for the user to ask and receive support. So all roads lead to the newly established ESCIA Community Service Desk. Here we can see the main screen where users will be reporting issues via this entry point. The problems generally are divided into two main categories, depending on the user's role. There can be either student issues or non-student issues. For both categories, there is an initial menu of requests, which will be under continuous review with changes and expansions whenever needed in order to meet better the actual user needs. So let's start with the student issues. As we can see in the screenshot, the student issues are organized into three structured requests. Students can either request information or guidance, report an account / login issue, or report a technical problem. We are noting again that this is the initial setup, and of course it's expandable. The process of reporting an issue is pretty simple and straightforward. All they have to do is fill in the email address, the summary of the issue, and select a service which the issue corresponds to between the Erasmus app, as we can see here, the online learning agreements, and or other. And of course, describe the issue. There is another field in the end right here where they can attach files and screenshots, which will help in understanding and solving the issue. Similar to the students, the IROs can report technical issues, request information or guidance, or they can report a login / account problem. Furthermore, they can request for a new account or suggest a change or improvement in the corresponding platform. Again, the process is kept simple and straightforward. The first three steps are almost identical to the students' process. That is, they fill in their email address, write the summary of the issue, and choose the service which the issue corresponds to between, as we can see here, the EWP network, the dashboard, the Erasmus Plus app, or if it's not related to any of the above, they can choose other. Now, for the first two services, a further categorization of the issue is applied. So for the EWP network, the IROs can choose whether the issue is related to a network operation, API specifications, or other. And for the dashboard, similarly for the dashboard issues, the international relations offices can choose whether the issue is related to IIAs or else interinstitutional agreements, learning agreements, nominations, or if it's not related to any of the above, they can choose other. The next field is for the description of the issue, and it is highly recommended to include the Erasmus code of your institution. After that, we see another field for attaching files and screenshots, which is also advisable to use in order for us to better understand the issue and resolve it. In the future, it will be possible also to upload HAR files, and a guide will be added in the Competence Center describing how to extract HAR files from the browser and upload them to the forum. So how are we going to support the users? The support teams currently structured into 4 main levels, 1 to 4, according to the service desk terminology. Speaking from a user's perspective, this is translated to a team comprised by agents, developers, and engineers. The first 2 levels, namely L1 and L2, are comprised by agents of the service desk, like me, whereas the next 2 levels, L3 and L4, are composed by developers and engineers. All these levels are collaborating in order to resolve the issues. So the previous support environment not only involved fewer number of agents, but additionally, this agent worked without a centralized communication channel with the developers team, making it difficult to escalate issues. In the newly established service desk, the team is currently composed of 3.5 agents in the L1, L2 levels, and 2 agents in the L3, L4 levels. Having established a better communication channel, all of them are collaborating more efficiently, trying to resolve users' issues. So the agents of the service desk handle the first line of support requests directly. In case the problem needs the involvement of specialized teams, meaning either second-level agents or engineers and developers, they are escalated to the next level of support under a common channel of collaboration. Beyond the service desk capacity, another enhancement comes from a new role envisaged in the new service desk setup. Now, there is a service desk manager responsible for the production on quarterly basis of a series of reports regarding help desk operations and health. So the service desk manager will keep an eye on the evaluation of the key issues, changes that may require a continuous improvement to be raised, statistics about tickets volume, and user reviews. The operational statistical data, meaning tickets volumes, can be utilized, among other things, as an assessment tool for recognizing in a timely manner future staffing needs. So users will be able to receive a more spherical information, including a comprehensive information about the current request. And also through the portal, a user has always access to all previous requests, service level agreements policies, announcements about planned maintenance work, example, platform/system upgrades. We also want to improve the quality of the new service desk. Therefore, we integrated a rating system in the new customer portal. In every issue, users will be able to express their satisfaction regarding the support on their issues. Whenever an issue is resolved by an agent, a notification email asks the reporter to rate the experience, ranging from very good to very poor. Now, we can see a live demonstration of the ticketing system from the user's perspective. So, let's see. Okay. Let's try to create a non-student issue. Let's report a technical problem, for example. Okay. Summary, IIA problem. Let's say that the issue is about the dashboard or the EWP network. Okay, dashboard. About interinstitutional agreements. Now we can get screenshot. Here we can see, for example, that the IIAs do not load. So we take a screenshot. We can just copy that. And just paste it like that. And it's already uploaded. You don't have to save it. And then now you send it. Just like that. So a notification email is gonna come now and notifying us about the issue. There we have it. As you can see, now you cannot. We already have a notification email. So our goal is to provide a better user experience to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michalis. I think that's very, very interesting and useful for all colleagues. And I hope that many of them are thrilled to have this comprehensive service desk now. One question, because we are quite behind time schedule. One question to you would be whether all these tickets that are being left probably unanswered in the previous support desk, which will be substituted by the service desk now. So will they be dealt with in some way? Will be transferred to the new service desk? Are they already transferred there probably?
Yes. Let me tell you. Soon an email will be sent to all open issues, notifying them that if the issue still remains unresolved, they should open a new issue in the new service portal. And please, it would be helpful if you included the old issue ID to the new issue, so that we know that we can close the old issues. For the time being, we are in a hybrid mode, looking both the new service desk issues and the old service desk, but prioritizing the new service desk, of course.
Okay, so colleagues that have some unanswered questions, they can probably go to the new service desk and just copy the open ticket, the unresolved issue, and send it to you once again. Okay, thank you very much, Michalis, once again. I see there are many questions. I would just like to ask you first to probably attend the whole presentation, and I'm talking to colleagues attending, and then probably pose your questions, because I think that most of them have already been answered throughout the presentations. I know that you are very eager to know more about these new improvements, but it would be more efficient and more effective for all of us to answer. Thank you, Michalis. And one other thing would be also in the QA section to read previous probably questions that have been posed by our colleagues there, in order not to repeat the same questions again. You know that it's also for effectiveness and being efficient. So we are behind schedule, but there are many things, very interesting things that were presented here. So let me go to the last presentation from Konstantinos Karaoglanoglou, tech lead in the development team of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, who is going to talk about the IAM in practice, meaning the interinstitutional agreements manager in the dashboard. That there are many questions in the Q&A section. So Kostas, the floor is yours, and off you go.
Hello, Nikos. Can you confirm that my screen is shared?
Yeah, yes, I confirm.
Okay.
You're live.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully, I'll be able to tackle some of the questions that are popping up in the Q&A section also. Before going into specifics about the interinstitutional agreement manager in the dashboard, I'd like to first outline the presentation. I'll talk a bit at first for the role of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in this new era for the Erasmus Plus program. We will dive into specifics of the interinstitutional agreement manager, and I will try to explain to you, not being too technical about it, where the pain points and the bottlenecks are. I will identify the weaknesses, and I'll also showcase an action plan, both a short-term action plan and a long-term action plan, so that we can tackle these issues and have this being smoothly operational. A couple of words about the AUTH's role in the past couple of years. Our past experience in the Erasmus Plus program ecosystem includes rebuilding the OLA application and developing a number of dashboard side components. The OLA application is the application for the students to fill out their learning agreements. Now, starting from the 1st of January of 2022 onwards, our role in this new era is providing corrective maintenance, bug error fixing in the EWP dashboard services, applying some site reliability engineering actions in the infrastructure as a whole in order to tackle performance and load issues, and of course developing widespread improvements in the EWP dashboard. Now, diving into the interinstitutional agreement manager specifics, I'd also like to stress, like the colleagues done previously, the importance of the newly established service desk that includes a clear channel of communication between the end users and the development teams. I want to reassure you that we see the frustration and we are already acting upon it, especially when it comes to exchanging interinstitutional agreements via the EWP network. Before identifying weaknesses and actions, it is crucial for me to showcase a scenario of exchanging IIAs with another partner in the network. Starting from the master-master copy of an interinstitutional agreement, which basically means that an agreement belongs equally to both partners, and starting from this requirement, this fact alone ties closely both partners' implementations from the get-go. You are having an inherent interdependency starting from scratch, okay? Now let's see the scenario and see how the implementations of partners, the one partner being the dashboard, of course, will have to play well together in order for an agreement to be created and fully approved in this whole flow. The creator HEI prepares an interinstitutional agreement, and the creator HEI sends an IIA CNR to the partner HEI. The CNR is a mere notification. The creator HEI pings the partner HEI saying that I have an IIA for you. This is a CNR. The partner HEI gets the interinstitutional agreement and they are saving it to their local system. The partner HEI then sends an IIA CNR to the creator HEI, saying that I've saved the agreement in my local system, and this is the IIA ID in my local system. Then the creator HEI gets the interinstitutional agreement and saves the partner HEI's IIA ID. These three steps are very important in order to comply with the master copy of an IIA. Before the negotiation starts, both implementations, dashboard's implementation and the partner's implementation, have to make sure that they have the same copy of an IIA and everyone is aware of this IIA ID in the corresponding local system, one being the dashboard and the other being the partner's implementation. Okay. Close the door, please. Now, once those two copies are binded, then the flow can continue in step 3 and step 4. Once this binding occurs, editing and approving can follow. So in step 3, the partner HEI can either edit or approve. Upon edit, the partner sends a notification and the creator HEI gets the updated IIA. Upon approval, the partner HEI sends an IIA approval notification and the creator HEI does an approval request to store its response as proof that the partner HEI approved the IIA. And in the last step, the creator HEI can either edit or approve. And this is the simplified scenario of exchanging IIAs via the EWP network. Now, why do problems occur? Problems occur because of faulty implementations. Acknowledging the fact that it takes two to tango, and from this scenario, I think it's pretty clear that the implementations of both partners negotiating an IIA agreement are equally important for this exchange to occur successfully. Acknowledging the fact that it takes two to tango brings me to the next slide of identifying weaknesses. EWP dashboard's central role in the EWP network means that the dashboard exchanges IIAs with literally every single node in the production mode, right? When implementations are faulty, this leads to errors, which are obviously frustrating to end users. Acknowledging the fact that the implementations of both partners are equally important, we are always and constantly revising, improving, testing dashboard's own exchange of IIAs implementation. And we are working towards making the dashboard IIAs implementation via the EWP network the reference implementation so that we can help other partners in the network comply with the rules of exchange, comply with the EWP specifications, so that we are all on board on this. Okay. Going even further, identifying weaknesses. One other issue that dashboard is facing is the fact that it is used by a much larger number of universities than the number that was originally intended to serve, including universities that have software licenses from third-party providers. We are doing our best to handle all this load, but it's important to reiterate here in this webinar that the target group of the tool of the EWP dashboard are still the smaller case, the smaller institutions that may lack the means to build their own system or purchase turnkey solutions. Moving, yes.
Kostas, sorry if I may interrupt you. Is it possible that you have something blocking the presentation, like a red box we see? So, okay, thanks.
This was it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank
sorry.
you.
Hopefully you haven't missed much, but we are going to exchange the presentations after the webinar, right? We're going to share the presentations.
You are right, yes.
Okay. Moving forward to a concrete action plan. As I've said before, we are constantly revising and testing dashboard's own IAM implementation in order to make sure that it is functional and smoothly operational, in order to succeed in establishing a smooth exchange of IIAs via the EWP network. And your feedback is absolutely vital to untangle this node. Now, the second bullet is something that it will happen really soon. Seeing the frustration in the help desk queue lines and from the Q&A section, because I was looking at it before I started the presentation, we will make sure that we will be giving from the dashboard's front-end side more clear indications and messages so that you, the users, always know why you can or cannot move forward with an action. Okay. And these two parts are these two bullets, these two action points. We've already started working on them, and we will start rolling out these messages and indications so that you all know when you use the dashboard what happens behind the scenes, and actually knowing what the problem is. There are many requests that say that I can't sign the interinstitutional agreement, I can't edit the interinstitutional agreement. Clear indications and messages will also help you understand why you can't move forward with an action, and will also help us when your feedback arrives in the help desk to also have improvement actions for this. for actions in the long-term plan. The EWP specifications are the rules upon which interinstitutional agreements specifically and LAs and everything else that is supposed to be exchanged via the EWP network. These specifications are the rules upon which the exchange between the relevant parties, the relevant partners, is supposed to happen. We are working towards simpler EWP specifications. We are also leading the discussions in the relevant providers meetings, taking into consideration the dashboard's magnitude of a node in the EWP network, right? And as I've already said before, we are pushing for dashboard's implementation to be the reference implementation so that we can help all the other partners in the network comply with these EWP specifications. The second bullet that's part of the long-term action plan is having appropriate safeguards when other partners in the network do not exchange data complying with these specifications, with these rules. And lastly, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And we are actively working on improving the interinstitutional agreement manager as a whole in the EWP dashboard. This is all for me. I think I've taken much more time. Thank you.
No, thank you, Kostas. I think you have tried to help me with timekeeping here, and you were very good at that. So we are only 15 minutes late, but I think that there was much information to be shared with all our colleagues, and I think that it was very, very valuable for them. We all see also the comments in the Q&A.
Hopefully, Nikos, I've cleared some frustration in the Q&A section as well.
I really hope. And of course, there are colleagues answering to some of the questions. Thank you very much, Kostas, about this. I don't think that we have the time now to go through several questions that are being left in the Q&A box. But however, I think that probably Joao is ready and has cherry-picked some of them in order to provide some very quick feedback on some interoperability probably issues. So, Joao, the floor is yours for the answers.
Thanks, Nikos. Actually, Kostas is a tough act to follow because the essence was already put forward in the previous presentation, but this is a topic that is very important. So I hope the colleagues will forgive me for trying to repeat some key messages. Myself and several other colleagues have been trying to tackle questions in the Q&A, but I think there's merit to bring some of them forward. Particularly, we have many remarks from many of you about the fact that the source of the problem might lie in the dashboard, might lie elsewhere. And I just wanted to comment on this briefly. The truth, so the question for us is not so much whether it's the dashboard that works or the other node that has issues. Obviously, we are responsible to make sure that the dashboard works because it is the reference implementation. It's the implementation that others have to consult and use for testing purposes, etc. And Kostas already touched upon some of the practical obstacles in terms of capacity and otherwise that need to be addressed to really stabilize things. And what I'm saying is, in essence, I'm agreeing with the feedback of the many of the colleagues that are a little bit frustrated, in some cases a little bit pissed off. I would say rightly so. This is not where we should be at this point in time. And the post-mortem of that, I think it will be the topic for another webinar. The point is really that we're all in the same boat. So if I have the best system in the world, doesn't matter which one, I'm not taking sides. And if I'm trying to work with a colleague that is in a system that has a faulty implementation, this is going to break things. This is a lot of what all of us are struggling with at the moment. And this is why Kostas was explaining that in addition to the work on the node that we control, in addition to the what is called the transport layer, the specifications that enable interoperability. There is also a lot of work to try to, as a team with colleagues from other systems, identify the errors and solve them. As in any IT system, errors are solved by the owners of the systems, and there are currently no way for, to send an ultimatum and send, this has to be fixed until next week, because this is a much bigger question, as you can imagine. But it might be an important discussion. It has been added in some circles, whether if we find ourselves in a situation that a given node compromises the functioning of EWP, that node might need to be removed. Again, we're talking about huge decisions because of their impact, the risk that it carries to the users of different systems. So it's not something that we can, unfortunately, because I know that's what colleagues would want, and to some extent they would right to expect it. We really can't come here and say, next Friday, if you don't pass this or that test, you're out. So I think it's going to be a balancing act. Alexandra spoke to the difficulties, and that's also why at the very beginning I tried to mention that one of the things we will try to make sure is try to keep information flowing, not just sharing information, but also listening information, understanding whether problems are increasing, decreasing, whether they change in nature, which is usually the case, so that we can get this working for, let's say, 99% as quickly as possible. So this is a teething issue. This is the elephant in the room that I've mentioned about, but it's also Cartesian logic. This is not new. This has been around for a few hundred years. We need to take a very big problem, split it into a couple of smaller problems. Again, I understand if someone doesn't want necessarily to be in for every step of the ride, because everyone is very busy, you want results. But I think it's also important that we take the responsibility to communicate what is happening, if not every day, or if not every week, at least on a periodical basis, because it is a question of transparency. And eventually this will be complemented with more to the point communications if they concern announcements or otherwise. I know this is not the answer, but it's at the same time the answer of how we're gonna, I think, overcome the current challenges. So that was it from my side. Thank you, Nikos.
Thank you, Joao, for bringing in the bigger picture. And I would probably like to add something to what you said about, because there are some questions about EWP being around for so many years. But I think that the current status is the new development, because there were different projects trying to deal with all these interoperable and the interdependent working flows. And now we have a comprehensive solution, a comprehensive, let's say, funding line for dealing with all these all together. And being an IRO myself, I really hope that this consortium will solve all these problems, and the user experience from the student side and from the IRO side will be as smooth as possible. So with these words, and being, as I said, unfortunately behind the timeline, I would like to thank you all for being here, for attending this webinar. There are more to come with more insights and more improvements and news about the improvements and the maintenance, of course, of the existing infrastructure. So thank you all. I would like to thank all my dear colleagues from the partner universities and organizations within the EWP Plus consortium for bringing and showcasing all these improvements through their presentations. I wish you all the best and see you soon, probably at the next webinar that will follow in 1 hour or so. So see you all there. Have a great day. Thank you.